Okay, folks, so we got our disclaimer up, and I believe that was more than an adequate uh, trigger warning because today we're going to get into some extremely touchy and graphic content. Um, I want to preface this by saying that actually, I'm going to preface this by reading a few segments of this article that I found, and then we'll talk about that for a minute, and then we're going to talk about Maddie and the drawings that she had in her notebook. So let's start with this article, and this is from Adolescent Health Center, the Mount Sinai Adolescent Health Center. I've linked this in the description box if you want to read the entire article. It's worth a read. It's a very good and informative article. So here we go. You asked it. Do victims sometimes orgasm during sexual assault? And I know you're some people are like, okay, well, this is out of left field. No, when we see the content from Maddie's journal, it'll all make sense. Says, I had an orgasm when I was sexually assaulted. Is that something that happens? Does it mean I actually wanted it on some level? That was the question posed, and the answer is we believed you and are so sorry that this happened to you. What happened was not your fault, and you could not have done anything to deserve it. If you haven't already, we hope that you talk to someone about what happened and are getting the care you need. Having an orgasm does not mean that you wanted or secretly liked being assaulted. Physical arousal, like having an orgasm, getting an erection, or getting wet, is a physiological reaction you cannot control. Let me say that again. It's a physiological reaction you cannot control. Yes, it is possible and actually not uncommon to have an orgasm during a sexual assault. However, this does not mean that you wanted to be sexually assaulted. It does not make the assault any less serious or any less of an assault. It does not mean that you secretly liked being assaulted. The statistics about having an orgasm during an assault vary, partly because so many survivors do not disclose that they had an orgasm. Estimates of survivors who orgasmed during their assault range from 4% to over 50%. Around 1 in 5 women said that they had a physical response to their assaults. You are not the only person whose body reacted to being assaulted in this way, and you are not the only person to feel confused or ashamed about it. And that's as much of the article as I'm going to read today. I think that's a lot, and like I said, I linked it in the description box. I highly suggest that you go over and read that. It is a really good article. I'm sorry, guys. The grandbabies were here this weekend, and everybody was coughing and hacking, and now my throat is hurting. Mm. But I'm gonna power through this, and we're gonna get it done. So I think the main point of this article, the main 2 points I'm gonna say, is that one, is likely very common for a sexual assault victim to experience a climax during their sexual assault. Secondly, the fact that they had a physical reaction to a physical stimulus does not mean that they wanted it or enjoyed it or deserved it. So how does all this relate to Maddie? Well, Maddie made some drawings in a notebook of hers. I hesitate to call it a journal, even though I called it that in the description, because I really have no proof that it was any kind of journal that she kept on a regular basis. Uh, from the You're going to see it yourself, but from the writings and drawings surrounding it, it looks more like it was some scratch paper in her notebook that she was doing math homework or whatever, and once that was over, she ended up drawing these pictures on that same page. So let's get to the picture. And I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this good. At the top, you see what is a female form, spread eagle, and along the side are, she wrote, and ah. Now, the part that is blurred out there in the middle is a male part about to enter a female part. So, just that alone, let's go down and look at this other one too. Now, the second drawing you see here is obviously what it is. It's a female performing the act of fellatio on a male. Now, I'm going to take this off the screen because I just really don't want to keep looking at that. We all got the picture. See if I can put something up here, something else up here. Oh, that's not what I'm trying to get. There we go. There's some pictures of Maddie up here. Okay, so as I was saying, even according to the article, it doesn't mean that you liked, enjoyed, or deserved it, and it is a common reaction. The thing is, the human body is designed to respond in specific ways to specific stimuli. And apparently, Maddie, if we go solely based off what's in the notebook, experienced some form of pleasure during her assault. Because when you look at the picture and it's saying, and ah, that sounds like pleasure. That kind of sounds more like the sounds of sexual pleasure as opposed to the sounds of extreme sexual displeasure. I mean, she didn't put screams there, or she didn't draw a female fighting off a male. And that's not to say anything against Maddie. Maddie is a victim. No matter which way you cut it, Maddie is ultimately the ultimate victim in this scenario. But when I saw this drawing, I thought about the fact I had heard already that some victims experience orgasm during their assault, and that is immediately what my mind went to when I uh, saw that drawing. And I kind of wanted to just jump ahead of the curve and put it out there that just because she experienced some form of sexual pleasure during her assault, you know, doesn't reflect negatively on her. It doesn't lessen the abuse or the severity of or the seriousness of the abuse that she suffered. Because she was abused. Period. Point blank period. There's no two ways about it. I feel like Maddie may have felt guilty a little bit about feeling pleasure because Maddie was at an age now at the time of her death, she was at an age and had been at an age for at least I'll say 2 years, probably 11 years old, to know that what was being done to her was not right. It wasn't normal. It was, you know, but still, she felt a pleasure during the act, and so I feel like maybe that uh that may have really taxed her emotions and her mental state, especially when you put it in conjunction with her other journal entry that we saw about how she feels, how she can't focus and different things like that, and how she feels whenever she sees a man that resembles her perpetrator. We remember that journal entry, right? Let me pull it up real quick and read it. That journal entry said, "My fluctuating moods, anxiety, and trauma related symptoms affect my memory, concentration, focus, and energy. I can't see what's behind there. Oh, and energy levels. I also have severe trauma responses when I encounter all males." And this journal entry was actually edited. She scratched out the last part that said that resembled my perpetrator and put all in front of males. So I believe that this poor child had a lot of conflicting emotions. And I feel like maybe she kind of blamed herself a little bit too as she got older. Because you got to think about this, right? You got to think about how Stefan probably groomed her and treated her. Um, and this is gonna get a little graphic. This is gonna get because I'm just gonna put it out there, and I'm not gonna mince words. Stefan, in his abuse of Maddie, you have to realize that she was very young and a small child when this first started. At that time, at that age, and they're saying that this goes back at least to 9 years old. And I want to say it's probably been longer than that because of the length of time that Stefan and Jen were together. I want to say that he only started documenting it 3 or 4 years ago, but that he had been doing this since as soon as possible after getting with Jennifer. Now you have to realize that Maddie at that time was a small child. It would have been physically impossible for him to penetrate her without causing major damage. And so that's why um if you go back to the 60 counts that he's facing and the descriptions of some of those pictures, he was using fingers, he was having her mouth on his male parts, things like that, but he wasn't penetrating her. And I want to say that the photos that where he was penetrating her were more recent photos because her body had matured. She was becoming a woman. She had already she had started she had experienced puberty, and we know that because she has a menstrual cycle, and because there's so much discussion about the fact that she missed her menstrual cycle in February. So her body had matured to a point where he could penetrate her. Sorry, I had something happen over here, but yeah, her body had matured to the point where he could penetrate her, and at that point, yes, it's quite possible that she experienced pleasure or pleasurable feelings physically, although mentally it was still damaging to her. I'm gonna have to get off here in a minute. I don't know what the girls had when they came over here this weekend, but I think they done gave it to me. Um, and I want to spare my voice because tomorrow we're going to be talking about Naziah Harris, whose case is very similar to Maddie's case, except that Naziah was definitely pregnant. Okay, I don't know what I got going on over here, but see if I can fix it because that little noise is aggravating me. All right, lost my train of thought. All right, that's how you get rid of that noise. I'm so sorry. That noise was annoying me and I lost my train of thought. We were talking about Maddie. Oh, yeah. So it's possible that she felt physical pleasure, but that the physical experience and the mental experience weren't matching up, which would cause her to have a lot going on. Especially as she came of age where she definitely would know that this was not right. We can't. Jennifer portrays Maddie as being so super sheltered and overprotected, but the truth is, she is a teenager. She's in school. She has friends. She access to the internet. She has a phone. I believe that Maddie, through exposure to different media or people, began to realize that what Stefan was doing to her was wrong on all levels, and that because she was realizing that in her mind and her thoughts about whatever abuse she was suffering began to change and her thoughts about Stefan began to change from whatever he groomed her to believe to the reality of what the situation was, that there was a conflict there internally for Maddie. I mean, I don't know. I just know that when I saw that those drawings in the notebook, it really did something to me. It just It's like it was a cry, a silent cry for help that nobody ever saw until it was too late. And that I can relate to because in my own personal abuse experience, and this is going to sound kind of weird, but I was a kid. I didn't know any better. It's like I did a silent cry for help that no one ever understood. My great grandmother, had a coffee table in her living room. And on the underside of the coffee table, where no one is ever likely to see it because who flips over a coffee table, I wrote in chalk, "No, we did not have sex." I still remember that. I remember when I wrote it there. And sometimes I would go back and I would look at it. No, we did not have sex. And so I can kind of relate to Maddie on that level. I can kind of relate to her crying out silently, internally, but maybe having a fear of approaching someone who could help you and telling them what was going on. Maybe she had, like me, had an experience where she did say something, or there was some obvious, glaring evidence that something was wrong, and that the person who should have protected her, like the person who should have protected me, either rejected what was being told to them, didn't believe it, blamed her, told her it was nothing, made her think that she was just imagining it. made her think that her symptoms, such as not being able to go to the restroom, not being able to have a regular bowel movement without the need of extra uh, fiber in the form of Miralax, that was totally unrelated to what she was going through. These are the type of things that people will put in the mind of a victim. And I'm not saying that Jen did that, or because we don't know. We don't know if Maddie ever cried out to Jen. We don't know if Maddie ever cried out to anyone. As far based on the evidence that we have, Maddie never said a word to a single soul. And so I'm really just speculating on the possibilities based on my own personal experience when I say that she may have cried out and her cry would have been rejected by the person to whom she went, which most likely would have been her mother. Because we already see how Jen defends Stefan even after she saw the pictures, even after she knew for a fact, without a doubt, absolutely 100% certain, this man has been abusing your child sexually. Even after she was presented hardcore evidence of that, her first response was to reach out to Stefan's dad and say, we need to get him a lawyer. Now, my personal experience was that the first time that my supposed protector knew what was going on and just did nothing, just allowed it to continue. The second time it happened, the person who was supposed to be my protector actually told my perpetrator, don't come around here anymore, the police are looking for you. And my supposed to be protector did that exact same thing when my sister was abused. Once it came out, she actually contacted my sister's perpetrator and told him, don't come around here, the police are looking for you. Kind of off track there, but not really. Just saying that Maddie may have, there's a possibility that she may have made an outcry to Jen and that outcry had been rejected. And I've never understood why it's so prevalent that women, especially men too, sometimes I guess, because it happens the other way around too. Women can be perpetrators, but mostly it's men who are perpetrating these acts on these children. And so I've never understood why it is that in cases where a child is being abused, that the supposed protector will often reject the child's outcry, will often protect the perpetrator, will go out of their way to protect the perpetrator. Um, may be fully aware of what's going on, and allowing it, being complicit with it, is kind of like is like an unsecret secret between the two, between the protector and the perpetrator. They know what's going on, but they won't do anything about it. And a lot of things that Jen has said make me feel like she was that supposed protector who rejected the outcry, who ignored the signs and symptoms, who knew what was going on and did nothing. And one of them, okay, first there's the whole we need to get him a lawyer thing, right? Then there's the way that she fawns over Stefan. We remember the interview where she was consoling him. I don't know. But I just wanted to put that out there for today. Because when I saw that drawing, I told you it just really did something to me. I saw it a few days ago, and I was debating whether or not I was even going to touch on the subject, because I know some people are probably going to get attitudes, get offended, and how could you say that Maddie enjoyed it? The simple fact is, our bodies are programmed to respond a certain way to certain input. It has nothing to do with wanting it, deserving it, trying to get it, even if Even if, okay, let's say Maddie and Stephanie used to have quote unquote sleepovers. Let's say that, take for example, Jen said in her interview that um, Maddie would come to her wanting to have a sleepover. Let's say that in that instance, Maddie wanted to have a sleepover because she wanted to be intimate with, I ain't even gonna say it that way, but she wanted to have sex with Stefan because of that pleasurable feeling. Okay, Jen allowed it on more than one occasion. And so even under those circumstances, let's say that that's an actual scenario that happened. It happened that way. Maddie is still not at fault because she was a child and the victim of abuse. And that may have been at a point where she didn't even realize she was being abused. Or maybe she realized that according to everything else she's hearing and seeing, that she is a victim of abuse, but she doesn't see herself that way. She doesn't see the relationship that way. We don't know what Stefan groomed her for. He could have had her thinking that she was his girlfriend, and when she was old enough, they're going to run away together. I love you. I'm going to marry you. We'll be together forever. You know, we don't know how he groomed her. Predators are excellent at picking and grooming their victims. So she may have, under these false pretenses of whatever he had put in her mind, she may have thought that's what she wanted. But at that age, there's no way she could know that's what she wanted. She didn't even have enough life experience to know whether or not that was something she wanted. And just simply due to her age, she couldn't consent to it. Even if she enjoyed it, she couldn't consent to it. It was still rape. I like to say rape by deception. I actually use that term for something else, but it kind of applies here. Rape by deception. He's put these things in her mind over all these years, over these 6 or 7 years that him and Jen have been together, to the point where she wants to feel that abuse because it feels physically pleasurable. It's a whole sick scenario. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, we don't know what he put in her mind. We don't know exactly whether or not she came out to Jennifer about it. There's so much that we don't know. There's so much room for speculation. There's so much room for, you know, uh, interjection of our own thoughts and experiences. Oh yeah, another key point that I want to make before I get out of here, because I'm actually trying to get out of here, but I got caught off on a tangent. Um, I'll touch on that in another live. So in closing, we saw the drawings. We've read part of the article on what the experts say. We have, oh, that's what I was going to say. Sometimes we have preconceived notions of how we think things should happen. Just like when children go missing and then their parents are giving interviews and we're like, I wouldn't respond like that. I wouldn't react like that. I'd be all over the place. I'd be a mess. I would. And we assume how we would act in a certain situation, which really, you never know how you're going to act in a certain situation. And I was saying that for a reason. I think I'm catching a cold or something because my thoughts are kind of foggy. I said that for a reason. Oh, We have our own preconceived notions about how we think things should go down. And in a lot of cases, it just doesn't fit the mold that you created. Just like this whole thing, this whole abuse scenario that was going on between Stefan and Maddie, her responses might not line up to what we think they should be. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe you might think that under those circumstances she would hate Stefan, she wouldn't want to see him, she wouldn't want to be around him, she would be fighting tooth and nail to keep him from touching her. But just because we think that's how a victim should react does not mean that that's necessarily the way a victim actually reacts. Okay, let me get out of here. I'm rambling. I'll see y'all tomorrow about noon. For the Naziah Harris story is very similar to Madeline's case. And Naziah actually disappeared in January, about a month before, well, almost 2 months before Maddie did. She was 13 years old. She was pregnant. She had been being abused by this man for years, the same as Maddie. So, see y'all tomorrow about noon. Thanks for joining the live. Thanks for letting me ramble. Thanks for taking the time to decipher my ramblings so that you can understand what I actually meant, because today I am just in a fog, and so I kept losing my train of thought, and I apologize for that, but I do sincerely hope that I got across the points that I was trying to get across, and that